Greetings! This is Vane and welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Arena. Okay, so in the last episode, we were in the mines of Cures, just kind of exploring. There's not really much here to say about anything, to be honest. They're mines, you know. There's lots of hot rock and lava. And we're exploring them. Oh, groovy. Okay. Let's see, do I have... Yep, I have a potion of cure disease. Let's cure that. Not that it matters. Yep. And because cure disease only removes the disease status, it doesn't actually cure the disease. And for that we need to have a level up. Yay. Have a level up so that we can choose our points, at which point it figures out and reloads all the stats. Bit of a glitch, but never mind. What you're gonna do, eh? These old games. Well, it's not like Bethesda's gonna ever re-release this and fix all the glitches. So, said what you're gonna do. See what's down here. Oh, it's just a shortcut to here, okay. So yeah, I was also talking about my autism assessment, because apparently I always thought it was normal, but apparently it's not normal, and my way to relate to the world, unless I've got something to add on a subject, is generally by processing it through me. Yeah, lots of energy. Here's another one. A common trait with autism is to have a let's just call it a robust nervous system. But what it basically means is there's a lot of energy. You can compute stuff relatively quickly. In the nervous system, not like being super smart. But what it means is that generally you end up with a lot of signals. And that's the problem that a lot of people face with autism. If you're doing stuff where you're getting a lot of signals, inputs, a lot of it, and you're in an emotional state, all these inputs can be significantly overwhelming. Which, when you think about it, is understandable. For those who are not high functioning autistic, having that amount of input can be overwhelming to the point of it is actually quite debilitating, which can lead to issues with things like muscle control, because you just as a species, we don't technically tend to think of motivating individual muscles. We tend to think that this is what we want to do and let the body do it. But if your nervous system is being overwhelmed, then when you're trying to do that in between everything else, is a lot more difficult. And in some circumstances, those signals are nigh on constant, because the nervous system is a little bit too effective. And is literally taking everything as an input, which can result in things like having muscles locked into place and not being able to speak, stuff like that. I mean, autism is a very, very complex thing. I mean, the latest information is that it is primarily a mutation of a genetic mutation that results in a highly, often sometimes over-effective nervous system. And that is why, I mean, that can be why sometimes things can be overwhelming, but other times with like what you're focused. I mean, many autisms become, I say autisms as if that's bad. Tisms. I like that. Many people with autism tend to have kind of obsession, is the best way to put it. That's how it's designed. They're interest in what's defined as a narrow range of subjects. Although that's not quite true. What it means is it's more that they're focused, and when they find something they like doing, that's what they tend to do. Yeah, it can seem a bit obsessive, and it really depends on what those obsessions are, but it allows people with autism to become extremely highly focused, which makes them, if you can find them appropriate for their job or task at hand, makes them highly productive workers. Not just workers, but I mean, in terms of might be creative tasks. It might be thinking, maybe philosophy, it may be social policy. You name it. It can literally be anything. The idea that people with autism aren't social is a myth. A lot of people with autism, because they might find a struggle to cope with social situations, might avoid them. Or feel drained by them. I know I do. So sometimes they might be kind of duck out, or they might just not be sociable, or just avoid them completely and not do anything. And then you get, well, people like me who quite sociable. I would say, ironically, that being social and understanding social skills and being involved in things like politics and stuff like that are probably a part of my obsession in a way. So it kind of requires, I mean, my obsession about games, for example, and learning and stuff like that, that totally yeah. But it's like that, a lot of that involves dealing with people. If you're learning, I might not be good at social skills, but I am not going to avoid them, because it's a big part of what I'm obsessed about, really. I think we might need something a bit more. There we go. Thank you. And it is, well, the best way to say it is an obsession. When you think about it. It was something that I found, I mean, when I say obsession, it's like, it's more to do with intensity. It's not that I think that it's wrong. I mean, I think it's perfectly normal, and which is another feature of autism, because it's very easy for people to think that this is normal. And indeed, that because, and it's not that it's not normal, it's just that it's normal for them, but other people might not find it normal. And that's where you end up with the issues. Because what people with autism think is normal can come across as rude or obsessive, or in many ways just plain wrong compared to society, as opposed to whether it is or not actually wrong. So they just kind of might not flag up. Might not flag up whether or not they need to remember to things like boundaries and stuff like that. Which is boundaries are a big issue. Because not only do you know what is and it isn't appropriate, or not know, as the case may be. I mean, I know what is and isn't appropriate from an academic sense, but it doesn't mean I'm going to process that and as part of social situation. It's like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, whatever. I've got no idea. And that's if I'm stopping to think about it, because normally you end up getting stressed and pressured, so you don't think about it. You're too busy doing to think about things. And it's often the best way to put it, that you're just too busy doing stuff. And for most people are too busy just doing stuff. It's having people actually think about and consciously about what they're doing and how they're doing it. It's surprisingly rare. So I've got an adamantium helm of intelligence, which says 28. Any here get higher than that? 24. 24. 29. 24. 24. 24. No. So you've got 29 there. I can remember where it is. Yeah. Compared to 13. Okay. Let's dump some of these plate helms, because I think that, yep, that's an ebony helm of some kind. So yeah, I mean, it's all to do with processing. I mean, I don't always, I mean, right now, the process of verbalizing what I'm thinking, unless I'm going to a stream of consciousness, trying to formulate what I want to say in a coherent manner, is surprisingly difficult. I mean, a key thing with autism is that generally people with autism may not know that they're autistic. It tends to be when they get into trouble or people start dealing with the other things of society. That's when they know when they're autistic. If it's identified as a child, they may grow up with the understanding that they're autistic and some of their issues that they have, and they can work on skills to get around them. Because it's all really about management. At the end of the day, it's all about management. Don't know what's that doing. Okay. I think we're on our potions now. Potions and resting. Alright then. So yeah, I mean, already I can feel myself getting a headache. Well, basically because I'm talking about a highbrow subject of autism, trying to remember things to verbalise and to make coherent sense. You can sort of feel a headache because it's like, yeah, I can feel the, it's like I can feel that the nervous system is overworking. Now that I understand, I can feel that. You know, it is a sort of weird sensation, but it's like once you know how what the issues are and why they're caused, you can sort of manage them. I mean, for me, it's like if I get overwhelmed, then I need to have a break. I need to have somewhere to go and rest. I need or to escape the situation. You know, I need to be able to calm everything down and take that break. And the thing is, it's like, oh, that's snowflakery. It's not snowflakery. It's literally trying to process everything, burns out. And just because there's a lot of people don't have that problem, and to be honest, a lot of the reason people don't have that problem is because is quite often they don't use the processes. I mean, basically, the issues that I have is it's like I have dyslexia, which is a working memory process, but that dyslexia is caused by my autism because it's just sending too much information at once. And there's quite a few people that they don't understand because they're not used, that's not how their brain works. So they don't experience it. And it's not that, oh, so thinking is hard. It's like, no, it's just that quite often you tend to think not at a higher level, but at a faster level. And the feedback of what you're thinking for autism, you know, it's not necessarily all entirely helpful. Around you see lie pools of seething lava welling up from deep below and releasing their gases into the air, which seems tainted but breathable. Yeah. So because it's literally you get everything. Right, that's pretty much how I described it to the assessor, the psychologist. It's literally, and quite often, because you get overwhelmed quite easily, that can be seen as that can overwhelm people. Thinking can often be disjointed because you're dealing with a constant flow of information, and if you're not, it makes you good at writing because you can put down that flow of inspiration, of that flow of like information down, and then you can organize and edit it and stuff like that. Which means you can put forth coherent arguments and can be quite effective at writing. Have a record of what's there, what you've said, so don't come across as being too rambly. Although the wall of text then becomes an issue. One of the things is autistic people tend, because they have issues with boundaries, tend not to know what they should and shouldn't share. So they tend to be quite open. Yeah, they tend to be quite open, but they can just as easily not be open. It really depends. They might have learnt that people don't like hearing what they have to say, so they just don't say anything and keep it all to themselves. In which case you get pretty much nothing, and it's like drawing blood from a stone. I mean, for me, I've learnt, basically I've had enough therapy in my life that I've been told that I should be able to be open and communicate. So that's pretty much what I rely on. And a big issue that I have is being able to communicate with people. Sometimes I do things and it's inappropriate and I don't mean to, but generally, I don't feel the need to be mean to people. It's not something that occurs to me. It's not like I can be mean. I know what it means to be mean. I just don't see the point of it. Again, that ties in with everything about my sense of right and wrong, really. It's the best way to put it. And even then I'm using the term right and wrong extremely subjectively. This is what's right for me, and this is what's wrong for me. And I can share that I can share that information with other people. Okay. And not to brag, there's probably like a dozen people or more listening to this at one point or another, depending on how long this video is, who are like, that's me, that is. And as adults, the biggest issue that we've had is that people with autism have is that it's normally picked up in childhood. But if it's not picked up in childhood, then adults, they learn as you grow up. You learn to adapt. You learn to manage. You have no choice on that matter. You just don't. And what that then means is that you learn whatever survival skills your experiences teach you. I mean, most people do that anyway. That's the thing. But for people with autism, that tends to be a case of what they've been learnt to is appropriate. So they stop getting moaned at or attacked or whatever for inappropriate behaviour. Of course, it might not be inappropriate. It might not be appropriate, and because it's like, okay, this is what tends to work within the mindset of people with autism, it tends to become, they don't react. It's harder to react. There's slower reaction times because there's usually a lot of information going on. And it can be hard for people with autism to read people at any given specific time. I mean, so they tend to rely more on behaviours and things. So it's like if they learn that that people don't like them talking too much, they'll just stop talking. On the other hand, if like me, you learn that it's best to communicate, so that you can better help deal with misunderstandings and come up with solutions, then it tends to be that don't really think about, especially when you're about what is and isn't appropriate to share, is the best way to put it. So for me, for example, I will always tend to focus on sharing. And it's like, well, to say what I've got to say, just to get it off my head. It doesn't necessarily resolve things, but it helps ease my anxiety. And if people take me at my word, I mean, it's not that I can't lie. I can lie quite well. It's just, although my bluffing, I mean, I can lie quite well because there are bluffing games, you see. But on the same pretext, it really depends on what benefit there is to lying at any given time. That makes sense. And generally, I don't see the point in lying. And as far as I'm concerned, quite often not saying something is almost as good as lying. If you're using, it's not lying is wrong. It's like lying just confuses stuff and makes things worse. So what's the point? I mean, you're talking to someone who might not have the best of, who struggles to read people, and generally the principle, what you kind of learn is that your read on a subject might not be right. Of course, I might learn that from an objective sense, being able to get back and go, actually, yeah, I can see where they're coming from. But it doesn't necessarily mean that at the time, I'm going to be thinking that way. because there's a lot of stuff going on. Simply because there's a lot of information to process and you might not have the scope to process it. And it's like, some people are like, oh yeah, what, you mean you're thick? It's like, no. I mean, dyslexia is, the working memory is deficient compared to the rest of your intelligence. And I'm extremely intelligent. I'm extremely intelligent, and there's a lot of information going through. So being able to process that, especially dealing with people or crowds or a lot of things going on at once, can be quite tough. Can be, I can find, which can make it quite draining for me. So yeah. I think we'll rest here actually. Because this is a big dungeon. Big dungeon. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it here. Okay, so this has been Vane doing a Let's Play the Elder Scrolls Arena. If you like what you're seeing here, be sure to like, subscribe, share and comment. Please consider sponsoring me on Patreon. And until next time, goodbye.